Hey guys, and welcome back to Hoosier Hardware. Today I am continuing to pile on Intel, and I'm going to talk about why the current i5 processors, now this is an 8400 box, but I'm really talking about the 9400F specifically today. I want to talk about why even at the lowered prices that we see them at, the 9400F going off for 120 to 130 depending on where you're getting it, they still just don't make sense considering what AMD has on the market. So I'm going to talk about that, and yeah, we'll get right into it. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Intel i5 processors have seen some price cuts since the Ryzen 3000 lineup came out. Specifically, the i5-9400F that I'm going to be talking about today is available for $120 to $130, whereas its Ryzen 5 counterparts from the first and second gen of those Ryzen processors you can find anywhere from about $110 for a 1600 to about $120, $125, $130 for Ryzen 5 2600. So it's in the same price ballpark, especially as those second gen Ryzen processors. But as Hardware Unboxed saw when they were comparing the 2600X along with a 9400F, I believe, the 9400F often outperformed the Ryzen processor. When looking at those averages, the problem was the 2600X seemed to be a little bit smoother in general during gameplay, which I would definitely take a few frames off of my average in favor of more consistent frame time. So in my mind, the Ryzen 5 processor there is actually the winner, even though the averages might not be quite as high. I'll take those more consistent frame times over the Intel product all day long. And I think what we're really seeing here is game developers, now that we've had a few years of these higher core count and higher thread count mainstream processors, I think game developers are really starting to take advantage of those higher cores and higher thread counts, whereas Intel is still, while offering some higher core and thread count processors, still stuck on the i5s and i3s with those lower core and thread counts. And I think that's really starting to hurt them, especially when we talk about frame time consistency. So let's jump into this build and sort of run through it real quick, and then I want to talk about a little bit of why the Ryzen processors probably make a little bit more sense, even at the price point here of about $500. Now, the advantage for the 9400F, at least for gamers, is that it does come with its own cooler, and the nice bit about this cooler, even though it's small, probably a little bit loud, it will actually do the job provided you give the case enough airflow. My 8400 has the same cooler and it's fine. Temperatures are well under control, so no problem, at least with the stock cooler. You shouldn't have to invest any more money in that. And then moving down to the motherboard, I would just throw at it a cheap B360 motherboard. In fact, in this parts list, I have a B360 micro ATX board with 2 RAM slots, which ideally they would have 4 RAM slots, but pricing sort of dictated that, which is okay because I did go ahead and pair it off the bat with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. One of the advantages of Intel systems is that RAM speeds don't quite affect them as much as the Ryzen systems, so you can get away with a little bit lower RAM speeds. Basically, what I recommend doing is pick your capacity and speed you want, and then pick the cheapest kit out there. Storage is fairly straightforward. I picked a 480 gigabyte SSD, but again, tailor any sort of build like this to your needs. If you want more storage, maybe cut down the SSD side, save some money, and reinvest that in a hard drive with more overall storage. Just sort of adjust that however you want. A commodity class 480 gigabyte drive though, $50 or so, that should get it done. As far as the case goes, I went with a Deepcool Matrix 30, and I did that because I really like working in this case. It's fairly inexpensive at about $40 after shipping right now on Newegg, and the nice thing about this case is it does have a tempered side glass panel to show off your hardware. For a power supply, I recommend picking a wattage that you'll be comfortable with, one that has all the connectors you're gonna need, and from a reputable brand that you trust. In this case, I have a 400 watt EVGA unit that should be more than enough for this system. Now, I always do like to include a Windows key in the pricing, though you can find these on eBay for under $5 all day long. So I included $5 set aside for an eBay key. And then speaking of eBay, this is actually where I recommend getting a GPU if you're looking at a computer at roughly this price of $500 or so dollars. I would get an RX 584 gigabyte version because they are cheap right now. You can still get them for under $100 all day long on eBay. You can get those aftermarket coolers, not even like reference designs. You get solid coolers on them. I would probably recommend going in and replacing the thermal paste on them, but you can get an RX 580 4GB version under $100 all day long. And my thought is I would rather assume some of the risk that the card will die a little bit young and get the savings on top of it, instead of just buying a 580 brand new. So if you're willing to use the used market for the GPU, you can get this build put together right now for under $500. And the reason that I don't recommend going this route, I would actually keep pretty much everything the same, except I would get yourself a B350 or B450 motherboard and go with a Ryzen 5 first or second gen processor for a couple different reasons. First off, and I already mentioned this, the frame times just seem to be better on those Ryzen 5 processors for a lot of games, whereas the Intel processor, which is still going to give you a great gaming experience, looks like it's giving you a little bit more fits in certain titles, whereas the Ryzen 5 processor seems to be a little bit more consistent overall and across the board. And the other big thing is you have a much better upgrade path with the B350 and B450 motherboards than you will with the B360 motherboard with the Intel platform. Because those Ryzen platforms, you can upgrade to Ryzen 3000 chips, which are going to give you much better performance than Intel chips. And with a B360 motherboard, you're not really going to be able to go beyond an i7 processor. You're not going to be throwing in a 9900K into a B360 motherboard. You just can't do that. So you're going to have a much better upgrade path with the Ryzen system than the Intel system. And you're going to be spending either right at the same amount of money or possibly even ever so slightly less. You're still going to be right around that $500 price though by the time the build is said and done. So ironically enough, I actually, when I first started thinking about the concept of the 9400F and thinking about putting that into a system, I was thinking this would be a great value for gamers. And to be clear, if you just bought a 9400F and you built a similar gaming PC, you are likely having a great experience, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with going Team Blue in this case. I do think though at $500, AMD still has the better alternatives with its older generation Ryzen products than Intel's currently offering. And that's where Intel's in this little bit of a tough situation where it's really hard to recommend an Intel system right now if you're buying brand new parts, because their prices are still acting like AMD's Ryzen 3000 lineup, as well as the second and first generation lineups, don't matter as much as they really do. The AMD platform has matured so much since its original launch with all the memory compatibility issues the first gen Ryzen products had. All that has seemingly been, for the most part at least, ironed out, and what we're left with is a platform with a supreme upgrade capability that Intel just can't match right now. And it doesn't look like Intel's coming with an answer anytime soon either. And with all that said, I want to kick it back to you. What do you think of the build in general? And also, what do you think of the comparisons here between getting an Intel system versus an AMD system? Which are you going with? And really any other thoughts that you may have for the video, let me know your comments down below. And of course, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and comment. All those things are helpful to the channel. You can follow me both on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. And as always, I'll let YouTube queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.